Hey there, welcome to That Dang Dad. My name is Phil. A few weeks ago, I made a video addressing the debate about whether the left is failing men. I received mostly good feedback, but some men operating in good faith still believe sincerely that the left, whatever it is that means to you, could be doing more to advise men on how to be better men. So, I threw it out there. What do you want to know, boys? I received quite a few responses that I've distilled down into several distinct topics that I feel capable of talking about, but obviously, I'm just one man. I have a little life experience under my belt, but I'm just a white guy that grew up in Orange County. It's a big world out there. So I've also collected some advice from some other men that I know.
Who? Top men.
I won't claim that this video is going to solve all your problems, but I hope you find some little nugget in there that helps you out. And while it's mostly been cis men asking these questions, I think there's going to be plenty in here that trans men and non-men can vibe with too. And for what it's worth, I'm not a gender essentialist by any means, but I want to do my best to help in the way that I've been asked to help. Now, let's set some ground rules. I'm approaching each of these questions with sincerity and respect. I won't be mocking the premise or implying that these are stupid questions. In return, boys, we are looking inward in this video. This is about us, our behavior, our attitudes, things we can control. What we're not going to do is hear a piece of advice and then immediately say, oh, but the girls on Tinder are mean. We can't control other people, we can only control ourselves, and that's what we're doing tonight. Also, you may see some familiar faces among the men that I've assembled. If you have some personal issue with them, or they don't get along with your favorite streamer, I don't want to hear about it. This is a drama demilitarized zone. This is the Continental from John Wick. No fighting on hotel property. If you have beef, keep it to yourself. I'm a vegetarian. Now, you are of course free to disagree with anything that you hear in this video. We're all just a bunch of guys trying to figure things out together. We all have different experiences, and it's entirely possible. In fact, it's pretty likely that you know something that we don't. I would love to hear your take in the comments. Just be chill. Be kind. No one in this video is trying to trick you or sell you boner pills. We're just trying to help to the best of our ability. So if you disagree, please come at us with similar energy. Lastly, any one of these topics could support like an hour-long video, and you know me, anything over 30 minutes makes me itchy, and I can already tell this one's gonna give me hives. So we are going to err on the side of brevity. This is an amuse-bouche for these topics.
You want a taste?
Just a little something to get you interested. I'm not claiming that this is all there is to say about these topics, so please approach them with that in mind. Case in point, I am not disabled and I am neurotypical, and I know that a lot of these topics are 10 times more complicated for disabled and neurodivergent people. Our advice might assist such a person in navigating an unfair ableist world, or it might gloss over or even directly conflict with their needs. If we do the latter, I apologize in advance, and I would invite you to let me know in the comments, or even better, make a response video so I can share it with my audience. I am not an authority, and it takes a village to raise wise, beautiful boys. Anyway, we have a lot to cover, so let's get into it. This is the one you've all been waiting for. This was by far the topic that came up the most often, and it's the one that always gets trotted out as an example of where right-wing chuds have answers for men that lefties don't. And there's a reason for that. Right-wing ideology treats women as commodities to be acquired, stored, and consumed. Left-wing ideology ideally treats women as, people with autonomy and hopes and dreams. So the concept of getting a fellow human is a little awkward for us. But like I said in the intro, I'm going to treat this question as valid and give you my take. And the short answer that you don't want to hear is that there is no secret, there is no cheat code, there is no playbook. Every human being is different and human interactions are inherently chaotic. Gaming the system or doing pickup artist bullshit ain't the way. It doesn't work. That said, there are some things to consider. To start with, I did a video a while back about how not to be a creep when doing online dating, so refer back to that for a deeper dive. My fellas, my dudes, my brothers in Christ, the dick pics. They're no good. Apart from that, I think finding companionship comes down to a few key things. Showing genuine interest in the other person as a human being rather than a tool to soothe your loneliness. Being open about your needs and boundaries and actively listening to them about theirs. Being vulnerable. And, very important, boys, making the other person feel safe. People want to know that you're interested in them and not just their ability to make you feel less alone. So ask good open-ended questions. Be curious about what they believe and what they need, and be open about your own needs. Be open about your insecurities and your fears, but just make sure you're not trying to manipulate them with pity. And be very, very cognizant of the fact that many men make many women feel unsafe, be that through high pressure tactics, emotional manipulation, anger, or pushing boundaries. There's this right-wing myth that, oh, you can't even talk to women out in public anymore. And that's only true for guys that have no concept of boundaries or appropriate context. If you're trying to ask out your waitress, a person whose job depends on being nice to customers, her ability to pay the rent is a hostage in your little flirtation. That's not fair to her. If a woman is at the gym with headphones in, she's probably there to, exercise. And if she has to reject someone's advances, it makes her feel less safe at that gym, presumably somewhere that she goes often, because so many men are incapable of handling rejection gracefully. But plenty of people still go out to bars and clubs and concerts and museums and other public places totally open to a friendly conversation. They might not be open for a date, but you can always strike up a low-key chit-chat and kind of see what the vibe is. Just make sure you're receptive if the vibe is no thanks. I think that's the big thing about meeting people at your job or a tabletop gaming group or at a local political organization or whatever. Lots of people find romantic connections in these venues, but lots of other guys have completely blown it by making women feel unsafe at work, unwelcome at a gaming table, or what have you. Usually because they can't take no for an answer. Repeat after me. Hey, it was really nice chatting with you tonight. Would you maybe have any interest in exchanging numbers and maybe grabbing lunch sometime? And if the answer is no, it's totally cool, no big deal. If you are going to shoot your shot, make the other person feel safe in whatever they decide. Rejection always stings, but if you make that her problem, you're not ready for a big boy relationship. Lastly, you know who knows a lot about how to make women feel safe and cared for? Women. Instead of asking men how to get women, why don't you ask women how they would like to be gotten, and then really take their words to heart?
One of the first things you need to do if you want to make friends and also meet people and maybe even have a relationship or two is to erase what the programming from Disney has done to our minds. And what I mean by that is I was raised with things like The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, all these Disney love stories. And obviously my concept of love is that everyone has one true love and you have to go find that one true love. And when you do find that one true love, you have to convince them that they are your one true love by any means necessary. And this is very dangerous stalker behavior. Don't do that. Don't do any of that. Love has to be consensual. Love has to be a two-way street. Now, the next part is how do you actually meet people, either friends or women? This is one of those things that's a little difficult at first, and like anything else in life gets easier and easier. One of the most difficult things in the world to teach or impart to people is confidence. And a lot of there's courses on this, you can spend lots of money on this, but the reality of confidence and or feeling less awkward in social situations is exposure, is doing it over and over and over again. So here's a really easy pro tip that I can recommend for people. Get a part-time job and or ask a friend to borrow their dog and take it for walks. Dog walking is a really, really easy way to walk around your city or town and have lots of conversations with strangers because people love talking to individuals. They will approach you when you have a dog. It just seems to be a very easy icebreaker. So get used to having conversations with people with absolutely nothing in mind. Because here's the thing, women are human beings. They're not sex vessels or sex pods waiting to be inseminated by you. If you happen to be the lucky one to, again, crack that cheat code that gets into the vagina. No, women are human beings too. And just like anyone else, you should get used to having conversations with people without the end goal being that you're going to be able to be having the sex with them. And this is something that is also going to be useful for making friends. So again, confidence is something that is very attractive. It's something that is very infectious. People want to hang out with someone who is also making them feel good and making them not feel awkward or be put down. All the advice given to you by pickup artists, such as negging, as in you should bring someone's own experience down in order to build yourself up, is garbage. You're a garbage human. You're just going to be that shitty person at the party who everyone's like, oh yeah, they're just a dick.
The easiest way to get people to like you is to take a genuine interest in them. When people feel like you care about them, they will begin to care about you. That's just how it works. People make fun of skills or professions, right? Underwater basket weaving. Have you ever asked somebody about it? Like, how does it work functionally? Why do you even use an underwater basket? Why wouldn't you just make a basket regular? Like, ask sincere questions and you might be surprised what you learn. And you can then use what you learn to become a better person.
And I wasn't going to talk about this, but I was at the pool earlier today and I heard two men talking about like how to get a girlfriend and like how to attract women, and it was profoundly sad. If I have any advice for any person, and I don't really do advice much, if I had any advice for any person about like how to get a partner, it would just be to to not worry about it. Like, just live your life, and if you meet someone who you have a good rapport with, then that's all you can really do. You can't really try to trick people into liking you. You just have to be comfortable with yourself and go out and chat to folk, and have a degree of confidence in yourself. I know you simply have to do this, but because it's when people worry about it that problems start arising, and trying to actually find someone, that intense need to find someone is, I think, where a lot of trouble with particularly men going after particularly women happens.
Being single sucks. When I was in high school, I was definitely an incel before that was a term that anyone was really using. Even now, at 28 years old, I have never had a relationship that's lasted longer than a month. And that's not intentional. At a certain point, that's just not something that's in your control. And to this day, I find myself often being upset and frustrated about the fact that I am still single, about the fact that I have never had the kind of relationship that I've been looking for. And it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be upset about that and to feel frustrated, but it is vitally important to be cognizant of the way that you are directing that frustration, right? So a lot of the kinds of things that people complain about when it comes to the way men interact with women, it's that they direct that frustration toward the outside world, right? So if there is one woman who has rejected me, it is not her fault that I have remained single for as long as I have, right? This is one individual person who is making a choice about how she wants to live her life. And that has no bearing on any of the other interactions that I've had with any other women. Right. So there is no reason for me to be directing that frustration at any individual person.
This is a tough one for me because the older that I get, the less AFK friends I have. Partly because I tend to have solitary interests, and partly because I'm married with a kid, and that eats up a lot of time and fulfills a lot of social needs. Aside from that, I think for adults, especially post-college, we definitely lose the courage to meet somebody and then say, hey, you seem cool, you want to be friends? Men do not like feeling vulnerable, especially with other men, but that resistance to vulnerability is preventing us from connecting with other men. A quick story. Once, a friend invited me to this weekly dinner and drinks night some pals of his were hosting, and I met several people for the first time that night. I was going through a divorce, I ended up getting super drunk accidentally, and I started bawling on their patio until another guy came over and literally just hugged me until I calmed down. I was so embarrassed the next day. I was like, well, I can never show my face there again. But my friend said that his pals told him that they hoped I'd come back the next week. So reluctantly, sheepishly, I did. And those people present at my humiliating meltdown became some of my most treasured friends in my entire life. The reason is that all of us were honest and vulnerable with each other during all kinds of life events. Divorces, arrests, substance abuse issues, catastrophic illness, you name it. We confessed our deepest fears to each other, we opened up about our insecurities, and we let that be a space where people were allowed to come as they were and just be seen and respected. Your connections with people will only be as deep as your vulnerability and honesty with them. And not only does that help you be genuinely seen by them, but this also enables you to express boundaries with them. I know some men hate being teased or jokingly punched by guy friends. The same vulnerability that enables you to be your true self with men will help you ask for what you need. And if they won't honor that, they're not good friends. And don't forget, other men are afraid to be vulnerable with you too, you know. So you might just have to make the first move, put yourself out there and see what happens.
And so when it comes to putting yourself out there to try and develop closer friendships, there is a similar set of barriers that we try and put up to protect ourselves from these kinds of what if scenarios, right? What if they don't want to have a deeper connection to me, right? What if they think I'm annoying, right? That's a really big one. But you're never going to know if you don't try, right? So that's kind of the challenging thing about vulnerability is you're being vulnerable, right? And that's kind of the beautiful thing about it too, is that to be able to open yourself up to someone, you do, at the end of the day, you are risking feeling some kind of attack, right? This might not go well, but you have to be able to take that risk to be able to develop those kinds of connections, right? High risk and high reward. And I cannot tell you how high the reward is for having taken that risk to try and develop those deeper friendships.
So for me, how to connect with other men at a deep level and how to deal with crushing loneliness are kind of just two sides of the same coin, and I address them similarly, which is to kind of just go out and do things in your community. That's how I've made several new friends recently, just through like left-wing online groups and meeting IRL to do whatever it is, you know, where we're cooking food for disadvantaged people, or we're doing a clothing drive, or we're fundraising, or we're, you know, protesting against the Freedom Convoy, you know, whatever it might be. That suddenly starts with, oh, you know what, there's that shared interest, and it's for, you know, a positive change that we want to see in the world. So that also just kind of gives you that good vibe and that good positive leftist energy. And then next thing you know, oh, you know, yeah, this person's kind of funny. They have a good vibe. Oh, hey, you know, do you and your partner want to come over for dinner? Or, hey, I know a good place nearby. Let's go get shawarma or Mexican food, whatever it might be, right?
I think it's really only awkward when you make it awkward. You know, like how you treat situations, how you act, you know, when you do something strange, when you fall down. Like, I've just kind of learned to laugh at those things, because if I laugh at it, then it's like, whatever, we're laughing together and we can just move past it, you know? I read a book at 19 called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I credit it as maybe one of the most important things I ever did for being able to create connections with other people. My 19-year-old brain basically thought it was pickup artistry. Like, I was going to be able to, with the information in this book, make people trust me, make people do what I wanted them to do. And what the book is about is empathy. It is about how to learn what is important to people and how to express and communicate things in ways that connect with that and their values.
Outside of capitalism's decline and climate catastrophe, I think this question is the defining issue of this generation. For a variety of reasons, humans are more atomized and isolated than ever before, and it's killing us. And I don't have a great silver bullet answer for you. Many of the outside forces worsening this loneliness are outside of our direct control. But here's what you can control: how you spend your time. To the extent that you're able, it's good to get outside and into your community regularly. Volunteer with a local organization, join a meetup group for walking or hiking or biking or outdoor yoga or crafting, do some outreach, clean up some litter. Not only will you probably meet some new friends, but it'll get you out of your head and doing something either for your body or for your community. If leaving your home is not a possibility, I think taking up a hobby, especially an artistic one, is something that helps make life feel more fulfilling. Creating things feels good, and even when you're a novice, completing projects and seeing hobbies through to completion gives you some trajectory, some progress along a path. This doesn't cure loneliness, but it helps you fill your life with positive things that will hopefully fulfill you while you're seeking out human connection. Plus, it makes you more interesting when you do meet people.
I realized that if I was not going to be able to be deeply intimate with a romantic partner, then I could still have similar needs met by my friends, right? So I wound up developing, I learned how to develop more intimate relationships with my other loved ones that were in my life, right? So I have made some very valuable friendships because of this over time. And what I kept coming back to is this question of why are romantic relationships so much more highly valued in our society than friendships? And so what I came to put together was that my friendships were just as important to me as any kind of romantic relationship that I could have, right? So if I were to enter this kind of relationship that I've been looking for, then I would still be holding all of my friendships that I've spent years developing in just as high regard as those romantic relationships. And in fact, right, once I started developing those friendships, deeper, more personal, more valuable friendships, that did so much more to improve my happiness, right? My life has been so much more fulfilled because I have learned to be more vulnerable and more intimate in my friendships. So I think a big piece of advice that I would give would be worry less about a relationship, not forget about it entirely, but put less emphasis on that. Put less of your focus into getting one of those and focus instead on building up your friendships. And that, I think, is going to pay dividends in ways that you might not expect starting out.
Get used to meeting a variety of people, and you'll begin to find that there are certain cues that you'll pick up on, natural cues. When people are more interested in you, they may start to ask more questions about your life and aspects of it. They may start to become more engaged with conversation with you, laugh a little bit more at your jokes. I can tell you this from experience because I have been very, very overweight at points in my life. I have been what many would describe as an extreme nerd, wearing, giant thick glasses, covered in riddled in acne, and having a lot of difficulty meeting people. If people get out of their heads this idea that everything is a game of numbers, where everything is like, oh, I have to be better than a sub-5. If I'm not a sub-5, I'll never get my Stacy. And then all the Chads are going after all the 10s, and I'm never going to be able to get my... All of that is garbage. And we reinforce this idea that there should just be one type of woman that every guy goes after, and that woman has to be as physically beautiful as possible. Meanwhile, yeah, men can be physically attractive too, but there can also be people who make lots of money. So the other thing in life is about becoming very successful in every way, shape, or form. The reality is, under capitalism, it's very difficult for every single person to become successful. So if we equate our manliness with our success in capitalism exclusively, rather than perhaps like most genders should be doing, in that how much are we both bettering the human experience for those around us in any way, could be something like donating blood, could be joining a Food Not Bombs organization, could be volunteering your time, well, then men are consistently going to be unhappy. We're always going to be miserable if we're only equating our worth and our ability to be breadwinners for our family, just like women are always going to be miserable if they're only equating their worth to how hot they are.
So this is a tricky one to talk about because the short, unsatisfying answer is you just gotta practice imagining yourself in someone else's circumstances. And that can be very difficult for some of us, particularly if the other person is coming from an experience that we can't relate to. As a cis person, I don't know what it feels like to be misgendered constantly, to be forced to live my body in the world in a way that doesn't line up with my self-understanding. As somebody with some body image issues, I do know about not liking what I see in the mirror, but what I see in the mirror still feels like me. Many of my trans friends have often said that they almost see like a stranger in the mirror or in old photographs. And for others, it's something different and even harder to describe. But I don't have to be able to relate to that experience specifically, because for me, it's enough to see my trans friends experiencing pain at being misgendered, and even more importantly, euphoria at being gendered correctly. Because I do know what it's like to feel pain and joy. And because I've decided that my trans friends are important to me, their pain hurts my heart, and their joy makes me joyful. So what I would say is decide to make the other person important to you if you want to better empathize with and understand them. Decide that it matters how they feel and why they're feeling what they're feeling or doing what they're doing. Even if you disagree, even if their behavior sucks, even if they're strangers or there are big cultural barriers between you, you can choose to be interested in where they're coming from because regardless of the specifics, you can relate to being angry or bitter or fearful or nonchalant or ecstatic or petty or sad. Human beings, for the most part, all want and need the same things: food, shelter, relationships, dignity, autonomy, and entertainment. You might not understand why someone is acting in a specific way or saying this specific thing, but I bet if you stay curious, you can start to figure out what needs of theirs aren't being met or are being met by doing and thinking these things.
Empathy is kind of a superpower. Not necessarily in the Azarath, Metrion, Zinthos way, but in the sense that you have to actually develop and practice it for it to be useful. It's also key to recognize its limitations if you really want to make the most of its strengths. That was an annoying sentence, so let me explain further. Contrary to popular belief, empathy isn't the ability to feel someone else's feelings. Rather, it's the ability to understand someone to the point that your own emotions mirror theirs, which is to say, the emotion that you're feeling originates in you. The limitation here is that at best, you will only ever get a close approximation of someone else's experience because it's run through a filter of your own. But the strength is understanding that. Because by recognizing the role that your own emotions play, you can actually hone your ability to relate to others by examining your own feelings, where they come from, and what you do to work through them. You can also then prioritize the understanding others portion that lets you mirror in the first place. What the process of empathizing typically looks like is listening to someone else, checking in with yourself, and then turning back to them for clarification. Broken down into steps, it usually goes a little something like this. You receive information about someone else, you ask yourself how you would feel in that situation, and then you find out how they feel right now. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the psychoanalytic, how does that make you feel? It could be anything from how are you now to I'd love to hear more about that, depending on the topic. From here, one of two things is going to happen. Either you find out you're on the same page, or you find out that their experience and their feelings are completely different from yours. But either way, you have achieved a better understanding than you had before. You have broadened your own emotional repertoire and understanding of other people. So the next time you're talking to someone who is describing a similar situation or feeling, you have more than just your own experience to draw on. Empathy isn't so much understanding as it is the desire to understand. Even in cases when you don't quite get it, what matters to most people is that you want to. It might not be enough for some, and that's okay, because respecting someone's decision to not let you in is itself also a practice in empathy. You can't really lose as long as you approach with good intent and prioritize listening to understand rather than listening to respond.
All right, so empathy is the short version is it's genuinely saying this person is in this space. How would I want to be treated if I were in their shoes? That's empathy. And I think the key there is thinking about how you would want other people to think about you in their position. So let's say you do something shitty, you do something, fucked up, and who thinks they're a bad person? Who thinks they're a fucked up person? Who thinks they're a shitty person? Nobody. Some people are, maybe a few people do, but for the most part, not even the worst people we know should really be reduced to their worst moments or their worst mistakes. So empathy is acting upon that knowledge. Empathy is saying, okay, this person is in this space, whether that be a space that's of negativity of their own doing, or maybe they're the victim of somebody else's negativity. Empathy is believing that other people are not shitty on purpose and acting accordingly. When somebody is shitty to you or in a bad situation, you have to think to yourself, is this person like this for the sole reason of causing me harm? And 9 times out of 10, they are not. Sometimes they definitely are. But even when they are, even in those rare occasions where a person is shitty on purpose, empathy means understanding what and why that comes from. And as you practice traveling down that road of radical empathy, of, finding reasons to respect and observe the humanity in people, you'll find yourself being much more in control of your own emotions, much less affected by the awfulness of other people, because the world just makes a little more sense, at least from my perspective. It makes a little more sense to say that this person is just having a bad day, having a bad moment, lacks a certain perspective, lacks empathy themselves. And I'm going to model that for them instead of, something else.
Something I learned pretty recently is that when people come at me and they're like, you made me feel bad because of X, instead of arguing that like they shouldn't feel bad about X or that I didn't mean that and that they misunderstood me, just giving them the space to say, oh, I'm sorry, that is not how I intended that to come off. What I meant was this, but I totally get how you felt that way, and I'm sorry about that. That has solved 90% of my issues.
Everyone is different, so you have to develop a habit of honoring what people need. Some people need reassurance, some people need to vent, some people want a distraction, and some people don't want to be alone, but they don't want to talk, and they just need a kind presence to anchor them. So when someone is in crisis or upset, Here's my technique. Damn, that's fucked up. I'm sorry you're going through that. How can I help? I would caution you against trying to fix things or downplay things right away without asking. We have a tendency to immediately want to give advice or try to convince somebody that things aren't as bad as they seem, but that can be annoying or hurtful. It's better to just acknowledge someone's pain and ask how you can support them.
You know, there's so many times in my life that I've been comforted, or people have attempted to comfort me, and I've sort of either received that comfort in a positive way or kind of in an ambivalent or even negative way. I'd say the most common trait of those people who comforted me, who did so well, was that they were really present with me in that moment. That I didn't feel as though anybody else was more important than me and the other person. That can sound a bit selfish at first, but really think about that. Really think about what it means for someone's pain to be validated. I think, my friends, we live in such a world as this where it's difficult for men to see themselves validated in their pain. A lot of other things about us are validated. Our anger, our frustration, even things we find pleasurable or enjoyable are validated, but not our pain. Not our pain. And when we're struggling, I think it's really important to be present with someone in the moment. Ask them what they need. Prioritize their feelings. And then I think we can really tap into what it means to be connected to somebody. Not everybody wants a fixer. Some people just want somebody to listen. And not everybody wants comfort, perhaps as you've been accustomed to giving it. They've been accustomed to receiving it. And I think it's really important to know what language we use in our bodies, in our mouths, in our hearts. What language do we use to communicate how best to comfort us? And that, I think, is really important. But presence. I'd say presence is the biggest thing that separates a good comforter from a bad one.
The ability to comfort people requires having all that empathy we just learned about. Whether someone has approached you or you approach someone, the first step to comforting someone is to offer to listen. If they would rather not speak to you about it, that's fine. Respect the decision. If they agree to share, listen to the entirety of their explanation without immediately giving feedback. In labor organizing, we have the 80-20 rule when talking one-on-one. 80% listening, 20% talking. I think that rule applies well here, too. Cutting someone off in the middle of their explanation conveys that you aren't really interested in what they have to say. Resist the urge to suggest solutions unless the person asks. Though you may do so with the best intentions, unsolicited advice is generally unwelcome. However, you should give them encouragement, empower them to overcome, and offer to be there for them. Finally, give them time and space. Comforting someone puts them on the road to recovery, but most people still need time to work things out themselves.
A really important maxim to internalize is, you can't logic someone out of something that they weren't logicked into. This applies both to extreme situations like conspiracy theories, but it also applies to normal human situations like grief, fear, or even joy. Most people do not operate on pure logic most of the time. We follow our impulses, our emotions, our instincts, our habits. And to quote my dear friend Zoe B., feelings don't care about your facts. Learning a new fact might entice somebody to feel a different way, but often that takes time to internalize and process. Learning a new fact does not flip a switch and cause people's emotions and behaviors to just instantly catch up in many circumstances. Part of emotional intelligence is being both curious about and respectful of people's emotional responses to things. To the extent that it's appropriate, you should ask people how and why they're experiencing the emotions that they are. To you, these emotions and the actions stemming from them might be unhelpful, illogical, unproductive, whatever. But you're also not privy to that person's past history of trauma or childhood experiences or recent life events. What to you seems unnecessary can actually be very necessary emotional processing for others, and your job is not to fix them. If you care about them, your job is to hold space for them, allow them their dignity, and be a resource. As I mentioned in a previous section, a great phrase to keep in your back pocket is simply, how can I help?
We live in this debate bro culture of people like throwing out stats and like, well, no, you're wrong about this and that, whatever. That doesn't change anybody's minds. Of course, we all fucking know that. What does is finding common ground and then building from there, building empathy between each other from a point of common understanding. If you can do that, sometimes you can move into those things at a higher level when you get there, but it's also okay to just avoid that stuff. If you want to connect with people and create community, you're going to need to learn to accept that some people just don't believe all the things that you do. I've got friends today that do not understand the trans experience, but what they don't do is they don't say the T slur anymore because I'm around. You know, you might think that motorcycles are too dangerous to ride, but maybe if you trust me, you'll let me put you on the back and then we can see where things go.
The balance between logic and emotion is a really fascinating topic, but I think it's one that a lot of people struggle to understand because of the false dichotomy of facts and feelings. Fellas, it is not facts versus feelings. It is both. You need both. They are part of the same human experience package. Logic is not the opposite of emotion. Rather, it is a tool for understanding it, and treating them as two mutually exclusive things leads to this idea of emotion as inherently illogical and logic as devoid of all emotion, but neither of these things are true. It is impossible to approach any situation from a purely logical standpoint because we are emotional beings. In fact, the quickest way to a reasonable assessment of a situation is to ask yourself how it makes you feel, because you can't really control your personal bias if you don't even take a second to identify it. The key to developing greater emotional intelligence and breaking out of the facts and logic mind trap is to begin recognizing your emotions as they come and then applying logic to them. A better understanding of yourself will help you in understanding other people, not to mention give you a better grasp of your own boundaries and social needs so that you can communicate them in relationships, romantic or otherwise. But anyone saying they operate from pure logic rather than feelings is just betraying the fact that they don't know how to be logical about their feelings. The beauty of developing emotional intelligence is that you're not only broadening your emotional capacity, you're also honing your reasoning skills. But you have to get past that either-or thinking. Learn to integrate those two things.
Apart from the how do I get a girlfriend question, this was the other big issue that seemed to be weighing on men in the comments. They felt that masculinity in general was often unfairly lumped together with toxic masculinity, and they wanted to know how to live as men in the world in a healthy way. And the answer nobody seemed to like is that there's no one right way to be a man, and that positive masculinity can be any positive culture or habits that men decide to take on and pass along to their friends and sons and so on. Masculine expression varies from country to country, sometimes even city to city. Masculinity can be whatever men want it to be.
All I would really say to people who are worried about being manly is, why are you worried about being manly? What is it about being manly that you need to be, that you feel you need to be? That's something I think that's worth questioning more than worrying about how to perform a non-toxic masculinity. Do you want to be a nice person? Do you want to be caring and be loving? Then there's no need for that to be manly. As my life has gone on, manliness, it's irrelevant to me and to how I live my life. I've never thought, oh, I should do this action because that's a positive masculinity as opposed to a different type of masculinity. I've just tried to do things that are not terrible. And that's nothing to do with being manly or not. Stop worrying about being manly. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Just worry about trying to be a good person.
But like I said, you all hated that, so here's what I'll say. Particularly in the United States, we are presented with a version of masculinity that says men must be rugged individualists, lone problem solvers, strong protectors, courageous explorers, and dogged competitors. Those traits are often expressed negatively, with men bottling up their emotions, becoming insecure if they don't make enough money or have big enough muscles, or feeling the need to get violent with other men. Instead, I think positive masculinity can take what's good about those roles and shed the nasty parts. If you feel a calling to be a strong protector, great. Shed the desire to be the paternalist shepherd and instead devote yourself to being a resource for your family or for the marginalized. Make sure your kid is up to date on their vaccinations. Make sure you have money socked away for an emergency. Take a CPR course, show up to protests, become a street medic, become an abortion clinic escort, counter-protest against Nazis, maybe engage in some direct action if you feel inspired. Instead of seeing yourself as the protector who must be in charge, see the role of protector as a servant's role. Same with being a problem solver or an explorer. Transform that from the rugged individual dominating his environment and into being a helpful resource or a curious, open-minded student of the world around you. Same with being competitive. Transform that from the need to be dominant and into the joy of testing yourself and sharpening others with the goal of growing together. You can see a theme emerging, yeah? Masculinity in and of itself is not toxic. Even traditionally masculine pursuits are not inherently abusive. It's the need to dominate that's toxic, the need to win, the need to control. That need to be dominant is what makes men feel insecure, and it's that insecurity that entices men down all sorts of dark paths. You can have pride in being a provider or a protector or an explorer or a competitor, but only if you're doing those things with a servant's heart. Only if you're doing those things to elevate others rather than your own ego.
The idea of manliness is caught in a sticky ideological web because ultimately it can only be defined negatively, usually against whatever is perceived in this case as feminine or unmanly. Before you know it, you're mired in reasoning that sits uncomfortably close to misogyny, which I think is sort of what we mean by toxic, isn't it? I'd rather think in terms of how to be more human, which, for a leftist like me, means thinking in terms of categories like dignity, cooperation, mutuality, and friendship. These values capture the best of what I grew up believing the manliest men embodied but without the gendered restraints. One thing that ties those values together is vulnerability, which is something many would probably exclude from a definition of manliness. Learning to be comfortable in your own strengths and weaknesses goes hand in hand with risking a little vulnerability in your relationships with your friends, family, and community.
I actually do the typical manly things. I like my brown liquors within reason, of course. I like smoking the occasional cigar with some of the boys, especially in celebration of something. I enjoy hunting with, again, some of the boys. So, there's me doing all those typically manly things, and yet I don't brag about them. And you want to know why? Because that's not actually what being a man is about. So for me, those quote unquote manly things, those are just things that, I ended up doing, but that's not what makes me a man. What makes me a man is who I am and how people have impacted me in positive ways, such as, hey, you should protect people when and where you can. You should help people when and where you can. You should always stand up for what's right. You should be good. You should be honest. You should have a good moral compass. And mommy and dad are here to try and teach you about that. Like, that's what it is for me. So all the stuff like, oh, me, like I'm a man smoking cigarettes, that's just performative and does nothing except to try and signal to other people, yeah, don't you wish you were me? And that's just weird and backwards and not actually what it means to be a man at all.
I think as a man, it's important to have hobbies that help you express kind of these more toxic internals that we have from wherever they come from. Like, I'm a kind of thrill seeker and I like physical challenges. So that's where motorcycles fits into my life. I can fall down when I wheelie and hurt myself, but I don't hurt other people at the same time. It's all me.
Part of liking myself more was being able to navigate the sort of social forces that were outside that were shaping my own individuality, right? So particularly when it comes to gender roles, masculinity versus femininity, and learning how to embrace the aspects of each one that I felt comfortable with, right? That made me like myself more, that I enjoyed being part of who I was. Right? So things like for masculinity, learning, like figuring out that I just really like breaking rocks with a goddamn sledgehammer, but also for femininity, right? Dressing nicely, wearing nice, pretty painted nail polish, right? This just makes me feel pretty. And things like hugs, right? I'm a huge hugger. I love hugs, right? So we always say masculinity is not inherently toxic, and it's not, but the language that we're using does tend to convey that idea to people sometimes, which is why I love this term I've been hearing recently called tonic masculinity. Tonic as a revitalizing agent, right? A liquid that is meant to soothe the body. Right. And so that's ultimately like what I've been discovering with tonic masculinity is part of being less toxic, right? Embracing that tonic masculinity is learning how to embrace a lack of masculinity, right? Learning how to navigate the complexities of these social forces and some of the inherent contradictions that lie within them.
For me, good conversation means a fairly equal back and forth, like a tennis match or around a nidhogg. To do that effectively, you actually have to be interested in what the other person has to say so that you can riff on it. Ideally, they're asking you questions or teeing up topics, you're responding and then throwing it back to them for their take, asking follow-up questions based on what they're saying, and so on. A bad conversation usually has two key factors. Either one person is doing all the talking, or one person is asking lots of questions and the other person is giving short answers and not keeping the conversation flowing. The goal is to not talk too much or too little and, if you have time, maybe to sincerely connect with somebody else.
The best conversations I've ever had leave me feeling like everyone at the table has found a kind of belonging, whether they talk a lot or a little. A good conversation, I find, is not a zero-sum game like an exchange or a battle, but rather an exercise in mutuality, where the outcome is greater than the sum of its inputs. I think being a good conversationalist, someone who encourages those kinds of encounters, means balancing two goals of equal importance. One is curiosity about the other people in the circle, and two is connecting with others over what you care about. Curiosity means asking people open-ended questions. My partner recently picked up the phrase, "What's that like for you?" which is a great way to respond to people talking about experiences that differ from your own. The other side of the coin is sharing yourself and what you're into. Trick is to share from a place of mutuality rather than competition. Think of some things you care about and bring them into conversation when you think potentially connecting over them would enrich the relationship you're forming right now.
There are lots of different ideas about this, but I'll tell you what I believe. Good leaders inspire voluntary willingness on the part of their teams to enact an agenda. They don't have to threaten or coerce. A good leader gives credit to the team when things go well, and they take all the blame when things go bad. A good leader is somebody who understands that they can't do everything alone, and that it's their job to make sure that the team has all the resources and information it needs to get things done. Good leaders are in it to do good work, not to feed their egos or use others to climb the ladder. Good leaders uplift, they don't stomp down. Good leaders give honest feedback with the goal of improving the team and elevating contributors, not keeping people afraid and on the defensive. A good leader serves their team, they don't dominate it. And yes, sometimes that means making a tough decision. But a good leader makes those decisions with the goal of empowering the team, rather than because it feels gratifying to be the decision maker.
The leaders I've respected most in my life are the ones that led by example. Never gave an order they wouldn't take, did things better than other people, focused on their mistakes, things that they could have done better, as opposed to critiquing everybody else.
There was an action that I went to recently. It was a very low-key, under-the-radar thing, and things started changing on the fly, on the ground, very quickly before we even really got collectively as a group to where we were going and what we had hoped to do. And so seeing that there was kind of just, people didn't know what they were doing, deer in the headlights moment, I kind of just took over, as it were, and said, okay, so, what is our goal here today? How can we reasonably accomplish that while also keeping everyone safe? We don't want anyone coming away from this injured or traumatized. I just took the consideration of the fellows that were there and trying to keep people safe while also trying to accomplish something so we didn't go home feeling scared or defeated, right? And I'm not sure if that's maybe an answer that people are looking for, but it's just an example recently that I have.
Because we all have someone we've looked up to. So I was taught to organize my workplace by two friends who took pride in sharing practical knowledge they'd accrued. They were always incredibly generous with their time, are still just a text away. I was really inspired by these guys and many others that I don't have the time to mention because they valued leadership that understood a few really important things. First, that there is incredible value in the ability to guide and teach others. And second, to prioritize solidarity over all else and use it as your guiding light, in a way. Solidarity is the necessary condition for empowering the people around you in a meaningful and lasting way. The connection I found in my weird assemblage of experiences as a young leader and now much less young leader is that effective leaders make it their responsibility to demonstrate a genuine investment in the well-being of those in their orbit, as well as their shared goals and aims. A commitment to both these things put into practice requires a determined and thus reliable teammate, someone communicative and flexible considering the needs of others, and the goodwill earned by sticking your neck out for others when they need you, especially when it's new and it's uncomfortable. And I'll admit that this is a bit of a counterintuitive approach considering the infinitely more popular and generally very weird pop culture leadership industry that produces 1 million books a year with titles like The 50 Irrefutable Laws for Effective Businessry, and probably directly inspired whatever manosphere or tech wacko is currently in the news right now. Not to sound conspiratorial necessarily, but I don't think any of that shit really matters. And mostly because practical leadership principles that overemphasize the individual fail to capture the ways all the rest of us live and move throughout the world. And navigating the world requires mutual intrigue and interpersonal expression, creativity, and openness to ideas. And I find that people really respond to this kind of thing in their leaders. And even more so, they respond to the encouragement and nurturing of these ideas in themselves.
This is a hard one for me to answer because I tend to be pretty intrinsically motivated if I have something I'm really interested in or something that gets me closer to a goal of mine, even if it's boring or unpleasant. And I know this is something that neurodivergent people sometimes struggle with, and I know it's unfair and unhelpful to say, just freaking try harder. One thing that I think might help, though, is to really spend some time articulating what your goals even are. Do you want a doctorate? Do you want to produce an album? Do you want to go teach English in Japan? Do you want to lose 50 pounds and do combat sports? Do you want to medically transition? Do you want to write a novel? Do you want to buy a house? It can sometimes be helpful to literally write down 2 or 3 goals that are conceivably attainable and put them in some kind of priority order. That way, you have something specific that you can then judge your choices and options against. If medical transition is your highest priority, then that inheritance that you got after your mysterious great aunt Belinda died should probably go into savings, not into a down payment on a condo. If your number one priority is to move away from your dying Appalachian town, it might be worth it to take the shitty server job in Lexington rather than the better paying one at the Harlan Tractor Supply Company. Your intuition might lead you to those decisions naturally, but it never hurts to physically write down what your priorities are and then just kind of have that as a touchstone for the future.
I think one of the most important things in my day-to-day life and staying motivated and accomplishing the tasks that I have to do throughout the day, whatever they are, is a morning routine. A good morning routine is absolutely the most fundamental building block in my day, and it might work for you as well. When I wake up in the morning, I jump in the shower, I wash my ass, I make breakfast, I walk my dog, I take him out, make sure he's taken care of. These are all, for me, no-fail missions. These are things that I absolutely have to do. And in the process of doing them, it gives me a chance to clear my head, to wake up. One of the most important things, though, in my morning routine is a good cup of coffee, a little bit of something for me, It could be anything. It could be a cup of tea or rolling a smoke bowl, like whatever it is that is a little bit of self-care for yourself. But for me, it's a cup of coffee, and that 5 minutes of just sitting down, not doing anything else, I have a cup of coffee. It gives me a chance to think about the rest of my day, to make a plan, even if it is a tentative one. Things might come up along the ways, but I'm better equipped to deal with those things once I've had a chance to sit and just think about what it is I need to do and get my head right. Morning routines, give them a try.
Besides the obviously evergreen maxim of don't be a dick, there's a couple things to consider here. 1. Be someone who sees work that needs doing and then go do it. Are some chairs blocking easy access to the space? Be the one who goes and pushes them in. Is the garbage can overflowing? Be the one to take it out and put in a new bag. Does someone need help carrying something? Is there an empty Coke can discarded in the walkway? Does the coffee pot need to be refilled? Or to step away from manual labor, does it look like someone is feeling left out? Does it look like the space is uncomfortable for others? Maybe you can advocate for them. Maybe you don't have the mobility to help much during a big cleaning day or a big move, but you can be present and help take notes or organize supplies or even just be there with some friendly banter. 2. Think about how much space and energy you're taking up. I'm a talker, and if I'm not careful, I will dominate a conversation without even meaning to. I just have so many relevant things to say. It's great to be able to come to a space and feel seen and heard, but just remember, other people want to feel that good too, so make sure they get a chance. This is especially important in political organizing. Some people get heard a lot, and some other people get talked over a lot. Be mindful of your contribution to that. Pass the mic to the people who haven't had it much. Lastly, I'll leave you with 2 maxims that I live by that I learned from the Judge John Hodgman podcast, and I think they will make you well-liked in any social venue. Number 1, be mindful of the work you leave for others. And number 2, help in the way that you are asked to help.
If you are a rambunctious man, a man whose presence dominates a space, or a man who feels the undying urge to lead, consider the advice of giving space to others and lending an ear. Further, be aware that your dominant presence or your urge to take the lead affects the space and takes space from others. This does not mean that you don't contribute and sit on the sidelines, but rather you contribute with respect to the space and in cooperation with others. Is that good? How long is that? 2 minutes? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Unfortunately, this is one I struggle with too. I am very prone to outbursts of anger, mostly yelling. Absolute motherfucking piece of shit. Sometimes smashing a remote control or an IKEA bookshelf mid-build. For me, it's feeling a loss of control that makes me angry. I don't handle feeling helpless very gracefully. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert in handling this problem. What I can tell you is that it's been helping me to learn my triggers, to really sit down and map out what leads to an outburst and how it feels in my body and in my mind. And then from there, I'm trying to train myself to recognize when those triggers are happening and to verbalize early before I flip out. This is making me really frustrated, or I'm getting really wound up by this right now. Sometimes being able to say it out loud helps me find an opportunity to remove myself from the trigger, or it helps my family remind me to take a breather, which I still need to get better about. I wouldn't say I'm anything close to a Zen master yet, but I feel like learning my triggers and verbalizing them early is putting me close to sort of being kind of maybe on the path to starting to get better at this.
Our society has patriarchal standards that demand men are both stoic and reactive. And this is a recipe for anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. It's a reactive cover for the actual emotion. Are you pissed off that you lost that game, or do you feel inadequate despite trying? Are you mad that somebody lied to you, or are you hurt because they broke your trust? Anger never leads, it follows. Find an outlet to feel it out. Violence doesn't help. Punching a hole in the wall in anger, realizing you almost hit the stud and broke every bone in your hand will teach you that real quick. Instead, write it down. Go for a walk. Talk to a trusted friend. As briefly satisfying as lashing out can be, it's best to stop when you feel it, uncover the underlying emotion, and address it. It may not stop you from being angry entirely, because anger is very real, but it will help you calm down, process, and allow you to be more constructive and peaceful.
When I'm upset, I ride my motorcycle or I work really hard on things. I do things to take my mind off of the pain, and I think that is effectively cognitive behavioral therapy. If you're stewing on something, then your brain is still like hitting those pathways. And I think when your brain hits those pathways, it kind of strengthens them. And so you find a way to focus on something else. You have to find that thing for you. And maybe to find that thing, you need to talk to other men who are also feeling that way. I think American culture generally just does not value de-escalation in really any context. I mean, that's why our cops are out there just blowing people away and people are not apologetic about it. They don't care. Learning to de-escalate is how you save friendships. That's how you keep relationships going. When people are angry or excited, like critical thinking goes out the window. The parts of our brain that are capable of doing that start to go. And so if you are aware of that and you can see that, then you can be the one to de-escalate and say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm sorry this is happening. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Let's talk about this later. Do we need to talk about this now? That's been the hardest thing for me as I operate, is that I want to solve problems immediately as soon as they come up, and other people don't. I have gotten a lot of appreciation for giving other people the space to think about things, to process things, and then come back when they're not in an excited state anymore.
Personally, I found that really positive coping mechanisms have been to either identify what triggers the source of anger. So, it was this game or, this series of cascading errors or problems that led to it, or, I'm always getting angry when this is happening. So why is that? So, taking note of that, journaling that really helped. Also just expressing and getting rid of the anger and the pent up aggression would always I'd try and find a positive way of dealing with it. So screaming into a pillow. As far as like getting the physical need out, going for a walk, I found always really helped. In fact, one time I literally walked like way out of town and then way back in. I was very exhausted, but I felt a lot better. Another thing is to notice where you start feeling the anger. So when I get anger, I tend to feel it all in here. And so doing this, where you kind of press your palms together and it concentrates it all in there, and then that allows, for me anyway, the tension, everything, to kind of really feel it, and then it releases in that way.
This is one of those questions that I never know just how much comes down to how our minds are individually built versus what we can train ourselves to do. Self-awareness feels like it comes fairly naturally to me, maybe too naturally, since I'm constantly obsessing over whether I look like a dope, whether I'm dominating a conversation, whether I'm making people feel uncomfortable. I've said this a few times in other sections, but I think it really helps to be curious about others. It helps to train yourself to ask, how would I feel if I were on the other side of this conversation? Or from another angle, it helps to remember times you were around somebody who made you feel small, uncared about, unimportant, whatever. And really, that's the main kind of self-awareness that I would worry about. Being aware of whether you're making others feel ignored or unimportant or used. Being aware of whether we're dominating conversations or taking up lots of energy and space in a group. Or being aware of when we're making people feel pressured or unsafe. If you're worried you might be too loud, too dorky, too queer, or just too much for some people, the answer is that some people just aren't going to vibe with you and other people are. As long as you're elevating and honoring other people, that's all you can control. At the teen outreach that I mentor with, most of the kids are trauma survivors and like half of them are neurodivergent. The communication styles are wildly all over the place, and some of those kids are a lot. But they always treat each other with dignity and respect, and at the end of the day, that is way, way, way more important to people in terms of whether or not they like you.
Checking in with the friends and people around you about your behavior is just the easiest way to understand what things look like to other people. I worked in retail, so I got a lot of feedback on how I acted and operated, which helped me. But if you don't have that job, you just got to ask. Hey man, did I come off awkward in that situation? Hey, when I said this thing, did that piss that person off? I think it's important to understand how you come off to people generally as a first impression. It really helps me ensure that I'm kind of meeting people where they're at. I know that I come off as the cocky blonde kid in every situation because I've had a bunch of friends tell me that they hated me when they first met me, like before they had ever spoken words to me, because I just come off as a cocky dick, and that's not a good thing. But knowing that, it is very easy for me to subvert people's expectation the moment I do get the opportunity to meet them.
When it comes to self-awareness, the starting place is always just to pay attention, right? So figure out something to pay attention to, right? So maybe that's a particular kind of feeling that you have. Maybe that's a particular kind of response that you often have in certain kinds of situations, or what have you, right? So just finding something to pay attention to. And it's usually, it's so easy to live a lot of our lives on autopilot, right? So we just sort of react on instinct. And so find something that's instinctual to you that you can see a pattern for, and start by just noticing it. We talk about mindfulness meditation, and that's really what the core of mindfulness meditation is just how do you pay attention to things? That's what all of this comes down to. Anything else that you're doing based off of that is going to follow from paying attention.
One of my favorite movie quotes of all time is from The Shawshank Redemption, and it goes like this.
Get busy living, or get busy dying.
I'm not going to claim that living that out is the easiest thing in the world, but I do believe that it really does come down to that. There's only two ways to let go of something you've lost or move on from something terrible, and that's to get busy living or get busy dying. Assuming that you're going to go with living, I think this means that we have to fill our life with, life. Get outside to a park or a walking trail, treat yourself to a delicious curry, get out to an art museum or a botanical garden if you're able. Go see some friends, write some poems, play some music, kiss a dog on the mouth. Take a mini road trip to the nearest weird roadside attraction in your area. See and taste and smell and make. This doesn't cure the pain of loss, but it helps remind you that it's a big world out there, that there's more to discover, more to learn, and more to live. At least for me anyway, when one chapter is unexpectedly cut short, it just helps to see that I could begin a new chapter somewhere else, doing something else, or with someone else. Maybe not today, but eventually.
When we're talking about letting go and moving on, I'm assuming we're talking about relationships. We could also just be talking about like failures, friendships, jobs, etc. What I found, and I've had plenty of moments, believe it or not, where I felt alone, felt like a failure, where things felt dark, and you get that feeling in your stomach, in your chest, that despair. It sucks. The thing I found is using that time and that energy to do something new, to learn a new skill. There's so much value that we, I think, miss, and there's a lot of research about this value being legit, that comes from just a sense of mastery, setting a specific goal to like focus on and push toward. And as you push toward that goal and you get that sense of efficacy and fulfillment and success, you'll find that without thinking about it too tough, you've already moved on. And you'll also, in the process, start attracting new people and new opportunities to you, because if there's one thing I will give, the grifty, life success, hustle bro types, it is that pushing forward, not just pushing yourself just to like, oh, I'm going to be rich, whatever, but like moving with intention towards a goal is attractive. It's not just attractive to, women, but it's attractive to like just positive things in your life. And like sitting in one spot when failure is upon you, like take a moment to like recover and regroup. But that just kind of makes you stagnate, you accumulate negativity, and that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you had a bad breakup, you failed on a job, you struck out on the job market, whatever it is, like take a moment to like process that loss, right? Don't just jump into some other girl's bed or something like that. Take a moment to process that, and then take a moment to think, all right, with this newfound time or energy, what is something I could be doing that is going to grow me as a person? And if you do that earnestly and uncynically, it really does have positive results.
Letting go ain't easy, which makes moving on even harder. And I feel like it's important to recognize a few things here. You can't change the past, and you don't always get to apologize. You don't always have the chance to right your wrongs. You often don't get closure, and this is going to sound wild, but that's okay. People in a given situation are doing exactly as you are, and it's important to put up your own boundaries and respect theirs. It's important to understand that this is about you and you alone. This is about your ability to process the situation at hand and work through it, giving yourself the tools to cope. Letting go is a process. We're often told to preoccupy ourselves, take our minds off it. And it's good when you need a break from that process, but you need to grieve. You need to be sad. Think through it. Allow yourself the space to feel it out, because sinking it deep down will only make you angry and bitter. And you'll hold on tighter for longer. Moving on is acceptance, understanding that you are no longer in that situation or relationship. This part's easy. For example, I'll tell a vague personal story. There's a friend that I lived with for years, and I had known my entire life. We were very close, we went through a lot together, we were always there for each other, even in the worst circumstances. As time went on, they began to bully me, pushing me around, berating me. They'd lie and sometimes even steal from me. After tons of fights over the years, I said enough's enough and cut contact, explaining why. And I'm happier. I miss them every day. I think about them often, but I now understand that my life is better without them in it. And while that does hurt a smidge, I know I did what needed to be done. I've moved on.
This is a tough question because there's two sides to it. On the one hand, you don't owe anyone an unwilling performance, be that academic, professional, or gendered. At the end of the day, you have to chase your bliss, you have to live your truth, and I think being proud of yourself for living up to your own standards has to be enough to keep you going. On the other hand, we live in a society, and no man is an island. If you're a parent or a caretaker or part of a political organization or a workplace, people might be counting on your labor and effort to stay fed, housed, represented, what have you. So maybe one way that we can deal with these feelings is to sit down and really analyze what is making us feel them. Is it that we're not living up to someone else's opinions about who we should be? Or is it that we think we're not living up to our role in improving people's lives around us in material ways? If it's the first one, we have no moral obligation to be who someone else wants us to be, although that might mean that we're not compatible with certain friends or lovers. If it's the second one, though, we need to ask what control we actually have over whatever material improvement we're supposedly failing to make. If you're disabled or stuck working 2 minimum wage jobs, you might not be contributing to the family bank account in a big way. But to give you another maxim I live by, all you can do is all you can do. You might not be the breadwinner you wish you were, but you're not being fair to yourself if circumstances beyond your control prevent that. If you're already giving of yourself and working hard and respecting others, what more can people ask? Now, maybe you do have some control. Maybe you could get a certification that'll get you a raise. Or maybe you could give up a small luxury here to benefit your family there for a time. Maybe getting on medication or doing therapy or some other self-improvement project would help you be a better father, husband, friend, ally. And if so, great. Give it some thought and decide whether that's something that you think will help you thrive. But basically, even though I can relate, it's a waste of time to get down on yourself about what you can't control. And it is definitely a waste of time to worry that you're not living up to someone else's standards for manhood or whatever. Be kind, work hard, and be the best version of you that you want to be.
Wanting to let go of your own mistakes is really important, because if you're holding that stuff in, if you're holding a grudge into yourself, if you don't feel like you're worth loving and appreciating, that you don't have value, you're never going to build that in someone else, right? You can't sell someone on that because you don't believe it. Once you learn to give yourself grace, then you learn to give other people that same grace, that other space to make their own mistakes, to learn from them, to grow with them.
I know it's a universal feeling for expectant and new fathers, and probably all parents really, to think about what kind of parent they're going to be. But experiencing all of this in the context of adoption has been very strange, to say the least. But it can be uncomfortable sometimes expressing the necessary honesty that you need to for adoption. But it's all right at the beginning, and because the late evenings after your day job spent poring over surveys and describing how your family practiced religion and your philosophy on child education are pretty quickly followed by the next thing. So your mind stays busy. I had to get tested for tuberculosis. It's a very stressful and laborious process. This high-speed chase toward the goal of a completed home study and approval to begin the adoption process hits traffic, and you get back to waiting and thinking, managing some heartache the best that you can. It's humbling in a way. But All this waiting around inevitably kind of brings me back to that first phase of child adoption, where you and your husband have to spell out your life for strangers by reflecting on both where you came from and where you want to be. Expectant fatherhood under the watchful eyes of written surveys and in-person interviews requires digging into yourself, and this kind of reflection is something I think that all men can relate to. Time spent confronting the possibility that I'm not living up to the often gendered expectations of the social world that fashion what it means to be a man in particular familiar packages, ones that coincidentally dovetail very nicely with the slurry of images telling me what to do and who to be and what to buy shoved in my face through my phone. What kind of father all of this means I'll be, raised to the power of the social assumptions for men. And to be honest, despite any of my actual masculine bona fides, I don't know what it means to be a man in any determinate way. Men in my family are in the building trades and fight fires for a living, so while I'm medium handy and strong on my feet, so to speak, living up to the familial example of masculinity as determined by society has taken a bit of adjusting on my part. But this kind of struggle between my expectations for my own masculinity and my actual experiences, desires, and needs has led me to an important part of managing my own self-image and personal growth. The men in my life I value most are humble, hardworking, generous, committed to the care of others. They share their skills and knowledge freely and willingly on principle and as a foundational element of their character. While these values can be expressed in the familiar language of masculinity, something worth finding a way to celebrate, in my humble opinion, they are not owned by men, and thus are free to be pursued by you, me, and anyone else. And while this is just one guy's experience and opinion, allowing for these ideas to form the bedrock of my masculinity has quieted a lot of insecurity over time. Humble, hardworking, generous, committed to care are good qualities in a father, but there's something anyone can share. The answer to how to be a man is all around us, and it requires recognizing that self-assuredness and confidence requires pursuing goals that, as philosopher guy Tom Wyman puts it in his really good book on hope and fatherhood, recognize some good which transcends our own discrete self-interest. The only things I know about being a man are learned in motion and with a commitment to non-discrete values shared with others. Managing our self-image and personal expectations is about finding hope and having faith in the results of our actions, allowing for the way we live and share our lives to determine what it means to be a man. The way you concern yourself with finding good ways to live determines the kind of person you are, more fundamentally and concretely than the shifting and fleeting impulses of markets trying to sell you something, or the discourses of social dominance and adherence to a particular way of living, trying to convince you that you're the wrong kind of man. None of us actually fully really know what that means. I know it can feel overwhelming to have the playbook thrown out like that in a way, but the good news is that this is the world opening itself up to you, and the introduction of new possibilities for what it means to be a person. What kind of person do you want to be?
I had to cut a bunch of questions for time, so real quick, fellas, wash your asses. That doesn't make you gay, and everybody can smell your rectal bog down there. When you're getting ready for a job interview, look up the company online and try to learn several facts about them and what they do. As a once and future hiring manager, I can tell when you haven't done it, and it doesn't speak well for your preparation skills.
Real saving is boring. It's taking small amounts of your money and putting it into a high interest savings account on a regular basis, or putting it into something that is known as a blue chip or safe stock to be able to invest in, and doing that over and over and over again. And then over the span of 20 to 30 years, you have like $20,000 or $30,000 saved up.
If you want to grow in your career, be the person willing to do the hard or annoying work that others won't do. Take on scary projects, ask to cross-train with other teams, and never miss a chance to elevate and praise your coworkers. But also, guard your work-life balance. Work won't love you back. Working after hours might get you a promotion, or it might just make you a sucker. Don't be a sucker.
I do think there's something to divesting from the concept of having a career in the first place. What you should be probably doing is developing skills and expertise, things that are going to be valuable in the job market. Now, some of those things, the easiest, like tried and true path is, you get a degree in a thing, you work with that degree, etc. But as you're working, whatever job it is you're doing, if you're trying to make yourself viable and valuable in the current economic marketplace, you need to be learning new things. That might mean taking on tasks that you're not being paid for. It might mean putting in a little extra work to develop certain skills. But what that does is the era where you went to college and you got a job and you worked there for 40 years, then retire, that era's gone. The reality is you're going to work 2 to 3 years at any given job if you like it there. It may be shorter, maybe longer, but you're not going to work that long there. And so as those jobs exploit you as their worker, which is what they're doing, you need to be exploiting those jobs for as much money as you can get, for as little work as you want to do, but also developing certain tech skills and things that are going to feed into your ability to work other places and do other things. Don't think about it as a career, but think about it almost like if you play like a role-playing game, like a character chart, and you want to level up skills at different intervals that you may or may not need in the future, and not put everything into one basket. That would be my advice.
I don't really know how to frame this, but let's just say that there are times in my life where I'm like not thinking clearly because my emotions are getting in the way, maybe romantic, maybe like lustful, horny emotions. And I just need to like jerk off and then like figure things out, And I think that's okay and probably smart.
When it comes to fitness and exercise, worry more about moving your body with joy than punishing the weakness out of your feeble mortal frame. Finding movement and activity that's fun will help you stay consistent, and moving with joy will hopefully help you not push your body into injuries. Stretch out and drink lots of water too. If you feel sick or tired or injured, you need to rest and heal. One cannot pour from an empty cup. Get some rest, recharge a little, and let your body repair itself as much as it can. You deserve it. If you don't know the answer to something, just say you don't know. Don't bullshit. Everybody can tell and they hate that. And seriously, fellas, wash those asses with soap. Well, there you have it. A ton of specific, actionable advice on a variety of topics plaguing the male mind, delivered by a cadre of online hombres. Was it everything you hoped it would be? In all seriousness, while I'm proud of what we've put together tonight, I have to reiterate, this is just a taste.
You want a taste?
My advice comes from my narrow life experience, and the men that I've assembled are all people that I have a connection with, who speak the same language as me and use the same platforms as I do. We're just a slice of the human experience, and we don't claim to have the final word on these things. So test our words carefully and keep only what you find valuable. That said, I want to challenge the men out there one final time. You should be learning from everyone. While I want to be a good male role model, I reject the paradigm that says that men can only be taught by such a role model. Be curious about others, expand your horizon of influence, and find things to learn from people who are nothing like you. Anyway, how'd we do? Would you like to add your own advice in the comments? Go for it. Did we miss something? Let us know. Personally, I feel like every single one of these questions needed like 20 more minutes just about how disability, physical, mental, cognitive, intersects with these questions. I know I haven't done disabled people justice in answering these questions, so if you can fill in those gaps in the comments, please do so. Anyway, if you think this video is a good resource for men or anybody else out there, please do give it a like. It really does help the video expand its reach. Even better, please share this video with the lads, boyos, and duders in your life. Thank you to all the creators who contributed to this video. I'm calling us the Boy Detectives. I'm just so grateful for your time and your energy in making this project something bigger than I could have done myself. I'm going to have a full list of all the contributors in the video description. Please check them all out. Lastly, thank you for joining me tonight. I really appreciate your time. I hope to see you on the next one. Have a good night.
If you like the words that came out of my mouth hole and you want more of them, go to everywhere social medias are sold at The Surfs TV. That's at and then The Surfs TV. Oh, I can hold it up here. Yeah, see, I'm holding the very words. Unless that thing Dad is being an asshole and I'm holding nothing, and then I just look foolish. In which case, yes, enjoy my hand. Only hands coming soon.